authorities are looking for a Kansas City Chiefs player they say left the scene of a 6-vehicle crash on a Dallas highway.
The victims of this crash are angry that the people who hurt them didn't stop to help them. Both cars that were speeding on Central Expressway are tied to Rashee Rice.
Nobody died, thank God. Somebody went to the hospital, and this is the time of year. Off-season is when this type of stuff happens.
In a season where the Chiefs surprisingly won a Super Bowl despite having, at best, a mediocre receiving year, it did feel like towards the end of the regular season, Rashee Rice began to pull away as the Chiefs' #1 receiver. But now, ahead of his second season in the league, Rice has made a series of huge offseason mistakes that could result in jail time. Stick around for the full story. Before we get to the content, please be sure to like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Also, if you click that bell button, then you can get notifications every time I upload new content, giving you all of the dirty, unfiltered details of the NFL and NCAA football. Rashee Rice was selected in the second round of the 2023 NFL Draft by the Kansas City Chiefs, who were in need of a true #1 receiver after having to trade away Tyreek Hill in 2021 and then losing Juju Smith-Schuster and Mecole Hardman to free agency in 2022. The Chiefs' lack of receiving talent was pretty clear early on in the 2023 season. Rashee Rice did appear to be the most promising of the bunch, but even Rice only had one game with more than 70 receiving yards across the first 8 games of the season. Rice got better as the season went on, however, hauling in over 70 yards on 4 separate occasions in the second half of the season, twice over 100 yards. Rice caught 8 receptions for 130 yards in the first round of the playoffs against the Miami Dolphins, and went on to make key receptions against Buffalo, Baltimore, and San Francisco en route to a Kansas City Chiefs World Championship. But then the offseason rolls around, players have some time to go back to their hometowns, spend some time with friends and family, get their bodies and minds right before coming back to the NFL for OTAs in May. For Rashee Rice, this offseason included a series of mistakes so bad that he might not make it to OTAs in May.
The news first hit on Sunday. There was a collision involving a couple of cars that became a 6-car pileup in Dallas. Police believe they were street racing. One of them registered to Rashee Rice. There's still an open question as to who was actually driving.
And authorities are looking for a Kansas City Chiefs player they say left the scene of a 6-vehicle crash on a Dallas highway.
Mr. Rice acknowledged that he was driving the Lamborghini.
The victims of this crash are angry that the people who hurt them didn't stop to help them. Both cars that were speeding on Central Expressway are tied to Rashee Rice.
She had a very big laceration on her left eye, on her eyelid. She's got several stitches that were put in there at the hospital, and the eye socket is completely swollen and black and blue.
I was shocked, and I was in disbelief after getting out of my car, seeing what it looked like my baby. I had my son, and he was sleeping in the back seat, woke up out of his sleep screaming.
Look, it's bad enough that you're flying down the road with no regard for your own personal safety, no regard for the safety of the passengers in your vehicle or the passengers in your other vehicle involved in this situation. But driving this recklessly, putting the lives of innocent people, including children, is beyond irresponsible. It's selfish. It's narcissistic in a lot of ways. It's a way of saying your lives don't matter as much as me having fun. But you know what? Am I going to sit here and say that I've never driven too fast down the road before? No, I can't say that. Am I going to sit here and say that I've never driven recklessly before? Unfortunately, no, I can't say that either. I've made mistakes too, as many of us have. But none of my mistakes involving a vehicle ever resulted in harm to anyone else. But after Rashee Rice's mistake that did result in a 6-car pileup, he didn't stick around to make sure that everyone was okay. One of the cars involved in the 6-car pileup that Rashee Rice caused had a child in it. According to Reuters, 2 people were hospitalized and another 2 were treated for injuries on the scene of the accident. And Rice didn't even stick around to find out if the people he injured were okay. Well, a couple of days later, we might have found out why. According to a Pro Football Talk article, police found less than an ounce of marijuana in the Lamborghini that Rice was driving. I'm someone who's very much in favor of legalizing marijuana across the country. Studies have shown that it's less harmful to your body than alcohol, but for some reason alcohol is legal and marijuana isn't. Doesn't make any sense to me. Having said that, those 10.8 grams being found in the car, it tells me the same thing that empty beer cans would tell me in the back seat. And it gives me a feeling that I know what was involved in this car accident. Could I ever prove that? No. But it makes me feel like I've got a better picture of what happened. And especially when you leave the scene of the accident immediately following the accident, that's usually because you don't want your blood alcohol content taken, whether it's through the breath test or the blood test. It's because there is something to hide. There's a reason that you didn't feel like you could stick around. That's what I'm always led to believe when someone leaves the scene of anything. If the wife calls the cops and says, hey, I just got beat by my husband, and then the cops get there and the husband's gone, it tells me that, okay, the husband didn't want to stick around for the cops because he had a feeling that he knew what was going to happen. Had a feeling he knew that I'm going to get arrested if I stick around. Now, Rice is facing a few legal problems here. If the prosecution can prove that this was in fact a street race, and not just some reckless driving, but a street race that caused harm to a minimum of one person, it could be a third-degree felony, and Rice could be facing 2 to 10 years in prison for that charge alone. Leaving the scene of an accident, particularly an accident that involves an injury, that carries the potential for 1 to 5 years in prison. Now, if the injury is deemed to be serious, it's actually 2 to 10 years in prison. And then you've got the marijuana that was found in the vehicle. According to Dallas Morning News, the local prosecutors in Texas don't prosecute on minor marijuana possession. So the marijuana charge is probably going to go away, but we could be looking at 3 to 20 years in prison here. So that's the criminal legal problem for Rice. But he's also most likely going to have to settle with the 4 other drivers that were involved. That's 4 drivers that weren't involved in the alleged street race that all have a solid case against Rice for damage to their vehicles, personal injury, emotional trauma if a judge will hear it, not to mention damages if any of their injuries affected their ability to work. So there's a few issues to sort out there. And not that there's ever a great time to have a lawsuit like this, but it's not like Rashee Rice has made a ton of money. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's already made more in 1 year than most of us are going to make over the next 10. But his career earnings so far is only $2.4 million. A lot of money, but potentially not enough, especially if this dude's somebody who's been reckless with his money. I mean, he's out here crashing a Lamborghini Urus. Is that how you say it? I'm not a car guy. But he's crashing a Lambo. The MSRP's at $230,000, and a Corvette that I'm guessing Rice got something better than the base model, so let's call that another $100,000. So in one day, if both of those cars are totaled, okay, he's out $330,000. Obviously, I don't know Rashee Rice, I don't know his spending habits, but a lawsuit from the 4 other drivers could bankrupt him. And if he does wind up facing jail time, and that jail time results in him not being available to the Kansas City Chiefs for the next 2 seasons, you kind of got to figure that they're just going to release him, meaning Rice could never play a down of football again. Seeing how football is his main source of income, that could be an issue for the guy. It's possible that Rashee Rice's career is completely over. Do I think that's likely? No, I don't. I think Rice and his attorney are probably gonna work out some settlements with the other drivers. I'm thinking it's gonna be something like $75K each. That's a complete guess on my part, but that would be a total of $300,000. I think he's probably looking at minimal sentencing, little to no jail time. This just feels like one of those instances where we're gonna get a professional athlete discount. If you or me did this, we'd be looking at a minimum of 6 months in jail. The only way that it might be different is if the judge sees this as an opportunity to make an example out of Rice. If the judge sees this as an opportunity to make an example out of him and to set the tone for street racing, reckless endangerment, leaving the scene, etc., Rice could get the book thrown at him. I'm not saying I want that. I'm someone who thinks that jail time isn't the ultimate solution, because look, even if Rashee Rice does wind up getting off kind of easy here, that doesn't mean that he can't learn his lesson. I think that Rashee Rice, as a young, wealthy guy, he made a selfish, boneheaded decision. The same kind of selfish, boneheaded decision that any one of us could have made when we were 23. Not that we did, but we could have made that same decision when we were 23 years old. So I'm going to choose to be optimistic and believe that Rice will learn from this and do better, regardless of the legal outcome. Look, next time, I hope that Rice just like rents a track. Next time that you want to go speeding with your friends and street racing, if that's what was happening, next time you want to race your friends in some cool cars, go rent a track, get some track time. That way, if something goes wrong and something goes bad, and I don't want anything to go bad, but if something went bad, at least the only people involved are people that were choosing to be involved. You knew what you were getting yourself into when you're involved in this race, okay? Like, I don't want anything bad to happen. I hope you guys do it safely, but you could do it. You can rent track time. You can go to a track and speed and have fun and do it in a much safer way. And if Rice did in fact consume anything before driving, hopefully next time he's smart enough to just call an Uber or a Lyft. Did you know that Uber actually has a deal with the NFL where NFL players can use Uber for free? Uber's completely free for NFL players. These are guys who can actually afford Uber more than most of us, but it's free to them. So if consumption was a part of this, hopefully Rice is smart enough next time to go, you know what? I got free Uber. Why don't we just, oh boys, we want to go out. We want to go to wherever we want to go to. Let me get on my phone and do the free Uber thing. Or you don't want to do that because that's not so cool. Uber, oh, it's so pedestrian. Everyone can do it. It's not special. Fine, go get a luxury car service, man. There's plenty of luxury car services out there. But driving and putting others in harm's way, first and foremost, that's awful to the potential victims, but it's also a career derailer. Look at what happened with Henry Ruggs III. The guy was on track to be an elite NFL wide receiver, was on track to be one of the best in the game. He drank too much, got behind the wheel of his vehicle, sped down the road, crashed into the back of a woman's car, killed her, and now he's spending 3 to 10 years in prison. I really hope we don't see Rashee Rice go down that same path. Hopefully Rice can learn his lesson here, make better decisions in the future, and have a long, successful career.